This is Bill Newman, WHMP.
This Sunday, August 21st at 3 o'clock in Buckley Recital Hall at Amherst College, there will be a workshop performance of the concluding half of The Scarlet Professor. This is a new opera based on the celebrated 1960 arrest and trial of Smith College professor Newton Arvin. This was the subject of a book, absolutely fabulous book written by Northampton author Barry Werth, The Scarlet Professor. So let's start with Barry Werth, the Scarlet Professor, author of The Scarlet Professor, and then we're going to be speaking with Eric Sawyer and Harley Erdman, who are the composers and the two men who put together the opera itself. So let's start with Barry Werth, The Scarlet Professor, the story of Newton Arvin. For those of our listeners who don't know the story, Barry, give us a thumbnail sketch.
It was the Labor Day weekend of 1960. Newton Arvin was probably the most distinguished member of the Smith faculty. He was a National Award, Book Prize winning author of celebrated biography of Herman Melville. He'd also written biographies of Nathaniel Hawthorne and Walt Whitman, and was generally known as one of the leading experts on classic American literature. He was in his apartment expecting a friend to come over, and the police came up the stairs. They had a search warrant. The story they told was that a package that had been addressed to him had broken open in the Springfield post office, revealing beefcake pornography, gay male pornography, mostly muscle magazines. The police asked Arvin if they could come in. He said yes. They searched his premises, and they found what they later described as half a truckload of pornography. This included his personal journals, his letters. They took everything. Arvin collapsed. He had long been very depressed. He was 60 at the time. They started to ask him who else had been involved in looking at this material, and he gave them the names of a number of other men in town, including two younger Smith professors.
And as a result of that, what happened?
They were all arrested, charged with sharing this obscene material, which amazingly in 1960 in Massachusetts was a felony with a maximum prison term of 5 years.
And all of this material, by the way, by today's standards, was laughably benign.
A 7-year-old can find on the internet in 2 minutes stuff that would make all of this seem like Calvin Klein underwear ads by comparison.
Okay, so there's an arrest. Newton Arvin is arrested. Other Smith faculty are arrested. There's a trial. It takes place in Northampton. And Smith College, as we know, that bastion of liberalism, stands up for these professors and says, no, they'll be here forever. We believe in free speech. We believe in individual autonomy. We are not in any way homophobic. Oh, no, that's not what happened.
It's not exactly what happened, Bill. The college was shaken terribly by this. Let's remember it was 1960. The notion of whether gay people were morally fit to teach had not been discussed anywhere as far as I know. And the trustees, I should say here, so they were all convicted initially. Nobody went to prison. They got suspended sentences. The two younger Smith professors, Joel Dorius and Ned Spofford, appealed and won on appeal, so their convictions eventually were erased. We can talk about that a little later. But in any case, Smith retired Arvin on half his salary, but they eventually, though the faculty was completely in favor of keeping the younger professors, the college let them go. So they were fired on account of this, and it was extremely destructive to both of them. They eventually both had severe nervous breakdowns. They did finish their teaching careers, both in California, but not without tremendous suffering in between.
So let's turn now from the author of The Scarlet Professor, Barry Werth, to the composer, Eric Sawyer, and the librettist, Harley Erdman, because, again, The Scarlet Professor is a new opera, and the second half of it will be performed this Sunday, August 21st, 3 o'clock at Buckley Recital Hall at Amherst College. It's free and open to the public. Let me start, if I might, with Eric Sawyer. Eric, why turn The Scarlet Professor into an opera? Why?
One advantage of opera is that it can treat a story that operates simultaneously on a number of different levels. As the title suggests, The Scarlet Professor combines the fact that Arvin was a professor with his scholarship on the Scarlet Letter and Hawthorne and involvement with its themes of secrecy and guilt. And we're able to combine these stories through the operatic form, something that would seem strange in a more realistic medium, like having Hester Prynne be a character, because, of course, Arvin spent a lot of his life thinking about Hester Prynne. He probably identified with the Reverend in the story Dimmesdale, who is her partner in adultery. And so he interacts with her, and she's probably somebody very close to him.
All of this in the Scarlet Letter. No?
Well, this is in the opera. In the Scarlet Letter, we have fictional characters, but Arvin has spent his life thinking about them, so he can have conversations with them in the opera. They can come on stage alongside the real-life characters, Smith professors, and the vigilant policemen who pursued these men relentlessly. So it's a mixture of these different levels of reality.
I would like to know, and maybe I should ask this of Harley Erdman. He's the librettist. Harley Erdman is professor at UMass, and we should note that Eric Sawyer, professor at Amherst College. Again, why do this as an opera? Because you two have been working on this for years, and I saw the first half. It's extremely moving, and for someone who knows next to nothing about opera, that's me, I was totally engaged in a way I did not expect. And why opera? Why this story in opera? And why does it work?
Well, opera has a larger-than-life quality. It's what I love about opera. I mean, I love working with Eric, particularly. I always seem to be attracted to telling stories that require music and coloration, and to take the story to another level. And the issues in this particular story, Arvin's internal conflict, his grappling with his own sense of shame, the inner psychology of Arvin as he confronts demons from his past, as he's surrounded by this sense of shame that society is foisting upon him. The stakes are so high, the emotions are so rich, the story is so multi-layered that for me, opera, which is really just a fancy word for a play that has music and singing throughout, that's really what it comes down to. Everything is on a heightened plane. Opera is 90 minutes of heightened reality. It's very intense. It's very powerful, I think. And it's the coming together of the psychology of the character, the choice of words in the libretto, and mostly Eric's music is sung by these really fantastic opera singers that we have here that make this 90-minute experience of the Scarlet Professor different than what could be told in a straight non-musical play, different than what could be told in a traditional movie, different than what is told in Barry's book on the topic. It doesn't mean that those other forms wouldn't work as well, because Barry's book is an extraordinary biography and a very powerful impetus for us. It is the impetus for what we're doing. And I understand there's also people at work doing a screenplay treatment of the story as well, and I think it could work really well as a film. But what Eric and I do are opera, and basically it's a story with music, and that's the reason, I think.
While we're on the question of who is performing this Sunday? Again, this is at Buckley Recital Hall at Amherst College, 3 o'clock, August 21st, this Sunday. Who's performing?
We have 7 really fabulous singers. The one best known to local audiences would be William Haidt, who's a tenor and lives here. We have other singers of equal stature from around New England and even a couple from the New York area. We have 12 choristers who are all professional level singers and play various parts in the show, mostly the judging townspeople, either of Northampton or of the town in which the Scarlet Letter takes place. And we have our wonderful director, Ron Bashford of Amherst College, and Eduardo Leandro is the conductor. He used to teach at UMass and has moved on to Stony Brook.
Let me turn back, if I might, from Eric Sawyer to Barry Werth, who is the author of The Scarlet Professor, an award-winning biography of Newton Arvin and the scandal that shook Smith College in 1960. Barry, I would guess that when you were writing this book and after it was completed, someone had come up to you and said, "Hi, I think this would make a fabulously engaging, amazing opera," you would have rolled your eyes enough so that we could have heard it all the way in Amherst. Am I right about that?
It hadn't dawned on me. I was, how could it have, really? When I think back to the period that I was working on this story, which was the late 90s, this is a story that had been buried for almost 40 years for a variety of reasons. It was a tremendous embarrassment to Smith. The college just wanted it to go away. While it was occurring, it was referred to there as the affair. And for decades afterwards, you could barely get anybody to talk about it. It was ruinous to the men involved, so they just simply wanted to get away from here. And what was also fascinating to me is that many gay people who were around in the penumbra of this were really shattered by the experience. In fact, a lot of Ned's and Joel's friends said to them, "Don't appeal this."
Joel Dorius, Ned Spofford, the two Smith College professors.
They said, "Don't appeal this. Go away. Don't bring any more attention to yourselves. Don't bring any more attention to us." So times had changed so dramatically that it was now reasonable to look into this dark chapter in Smith's past, but I had no ability whatsoever to look ahead, much less imagine that 15 years later it would become an opera. That was not on my mind.
Okay, so Eric Sawyer or Harley Erdman, one of you tell us, how did this come to be? You read the book? Someone told you about it? What was the genesis of this?
I read the book maybe 10 years ago. I wasn't thinking opera at the time. I mean, I do. My mind is not always on opera 100% of every waking moment of my day. But Eric and I, a couple years ago, we had just finished an opera on a piece of local history, The Garden of Martyrs, and we were talking about what our next piece might be. And I suggested to Eric, I thought Barry's book would actually, if treated a certain way, would actually make a really fitting topic for our opera. Especially our concept is, or our approach is, to look at those few weeks in Arvin's life in September of 1960, immediately after he had been arrested, immediately after the scandal became public, and to really go in depth and probe what was going on in his world at that time. So it's that really intense, concentrated, focused treatment that I pitched to Eric. And then Eric not only was won over, I guess, by my pitch, but has run with it hugely and taken the lead with most every aspect of the opera, including, in addition to composing and arranging the piece, he also is the producer of the piece. And this preview that we're working on, that's going to be performed this Sunday at 3 o'clock, is a preview for the world premiere that's going to be in September of 2017 at Smith College. Kind of an extraordinary series of events that Smith, which for so long ran away from this own shameful episode in its own history, is now actually embracing and coming around and going to be the ground, the host, the venue for the world premiere a year from now.
And the part of the opera that will be shown this Sunday at Buckley Recital Hall, Amherst College at 3 o'clock. That's Buckley Recital Hall at Amherst College, 3 o'clock this Sunday, August 21st. Free and open to the public?
Free and open to the public, yeah. You get 45 minutes, maybe an hour of world-class opera, free.
And it will be extraordinary. I've seen the first half. I can't wait to see the second. We've been speaking with Eric Sawyer, composer and Amherst College professor, Harley Erdman, UMass professor and librettist, and author Barry Werth, the Scarlet Professor. Again, this Sunday at Buckley Recital Hall, 3 o'clock at Amherst College. You want to see this. Whether you've ever been to an opera or not, whether you think you ever might like opera or not, you're going to love this. And if you love opera, you like opera, you're going to absolutely find this ecstatic. See you on Sunday.